Welcome into A Toast of Film. I'm one of your hosts, Ebo, and guys, this week I have a extended weekend because at time of recording we have Veterans Day coming up. So, I just got a nice Coca-Cola that I'm toasting with this week, but we got a great episode because I went to the theater Friday, Saturday, and today, Sunday. So I'll be reviewing three theatrical releases: Anora, Here, and Elevation, as well as I rented a movie, Frankie Freako. Stay tuned for that one. And, we had to take a little break because Halloween, but Mr. Snail's pick of the week is back. So stay tuned for that. And let's not waste any time. Let's just get into the reviews. Starting out, we have Anora. So this is from Sean Baker, who I think this is the first project I like because all his movies kind of are about terrible people doing terrible things. And this one's no different. Don't get me wrong on that. But he's brought us things like Red Rocket, The Florida Project. I was not a fan at all of The Florida Project. But this one, we have Mikey Madison, who's Annie. She is a girl, she's a stripper. She's trying to, just get by, get enough so she can get money. She lives with her sister. And, Mikey Madison, she's done a lot of real, crazy roles. Like she was Amber in Scream 5. She was also Sadie in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, one of the three at the end that unfortunately encountered Brad Pitt. We all know how that ended for them. But Annie she brings so much charm to Annie. Like she shows you how she gets over, these clients so she can get the most money out of them. And let me tell you, this movie, literally 5 seconds in, we got topless girls and thongs grinding. So this is a very, very, very sexual movie. A lot of female topless nudity, a lot of thongs, a lot happening, a lot of drugs. These are people having some times. And she gets this client one day, Yvonne, who she would, call Vanya, and that's Mark Edelstein. Hopefully I said that even close to right. And he's this, rich kid, and they engage in some, personal, alone time, and they start to develop this kind of relationship, and she's living with him, and they're spending all this money, and they spend this, incredible week of debauchery and spending money, and they get married, and then his parents come, and this is just a good drama where you have quality acting leading to some very well done scenes. You also have some very tense scenes, some uncomfortable scenes. But make no mistake, almost every single person in this movie is not a great person. I gotta give a shout out to Yura Borisov, who played Igor. Possibly the only decent person in the movie. I mean, Annie, she is at her heart a good person. She just has to do some unfortunate things to try and get by. And I'll tell y'all this. The final shot of this movie, Sean Baker, I want to give you your flowers on that, because the final shot of this movie, it makes you feel like someone reaches into your chest and just rips your heart out. It is that heartbreaking a note to go out on a movie. So I'm not going to say it was the best, experience I've had in a theater, but I had a great experience because I got to witness a quality movie in theater where movies should be shown. And I really hope Mikey Madison gets some award nominations off this. Hope Sean Baker gets his flowers. And I hope y'all check this out. I would give it. Whew, it's a tough one because like it's not one I want to rewatch because I do have one complaint. This movie, I think it was booked at like 2 hours, 19 minutes. There's a lot of fat in this movie, especially when they're looking for Yvonne after he runs away. And that goes on much longer than it should. That should have been a 5, maybe 8-minute scene. It was like a 20-minute scene. At least it felt like a long scene. But I would give this a 4.5 out of 5 cheers. I think it's a great movie. And like I said, just be prepared if you watch it that final scene, you're going to feel like crap. You're just going to be like, oh my God, like what world we live in. But Anora, great acting, great movie. Check it out. Okay, next up, we have Here. So this is from Robert Zemeckis. He's brought us a bevy of things, most importantly, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But this was an experiment where he set up the shot, just one camera in this one spot in the living room, and the camera never moves. It's just that one spot. So, if characters are by that spot in the room, they're right up in the camera. If characters are not, then they're far away. And it's definitely a bold choice. And he kind of shows it through the years where it's bouncing around, showing, the different homeowners, the different land. Because this has, present day with like old Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. Tom Hanks and Robin Wright through the years growing. Tom Hanks when he was a child. And then, his parents. I'll get into all the actresses in a sec. Then we also have the inventor of Lazy Boy. We have a younger 21st century couple during COVID. We have Native Americans when it was just grass, rocks, and trees. We got Ben Franklin, when he had a colonial estate, and we got like an early pilot during like the 16th century. I'm not good with time frames. But, your big names, like I said, Tom Hanks plays Richard, Robin Wright plays Margaret, and he lives with his parents. You got Paul Bettany as Al, who was he was a soldier. And then Kelly Riley from Yellowstone, old Beth Dutton, plays Rose, his wife. And I think, one, if it hadn't been just a still shot where you're only in that one spot, or I think if it had been linear where, we start with Native Americans, he does like a little time cut. We go Ben Franklin, does a little time cut. We do the pilot, time cut. And evolve through that, it might have been better. But when you have this one stationary shot, you have all these different time periods you're covering, and they're bouncing back and forth. So you'll be like with Ben Franklin for 3 minutes. Then you're with old Tom Hanks. Then you're with child Tom Hanks. Then you're with the inventor Lazy Boy. Then you're with the couple during COVID. And you're bouncing around, and he's doing all this stuff, and the film looks good, and the acting, is good because these are all quality people in the movie in every role. I will tell y'all this though. Paul Bettany, I've always been a huge fan of Paul Bettany ever since, he was walking butt nude down the street in a old Knight's Tale. But I've always loved Paul Bettany. And then seeing him as this, veteran from the war who was affected by the war, and he has his family, and, he's not perfect. And I really thought that was interesting, especially what they do with old Paul Bettany's character. And all the other families, they do some cool stuff. They tackle all kinds of things. I just think at the end of the day, I could admit there's quality acting, quality filmmaking taking place. And I really do appreciate the idea. I think it's a very cool idea. But this is not a movie. This is a, glorified art project. And art is subjective, much like films. So Here is not something you need to see in theaters because It's all over the place. This is a much better at home movie. I like it. I don't love it. I had high expectations, and at the end of the day, for me, it was just too bourgeois schmoozwa. So here, I'm going to be generous because of all the good that went into it. And I'm going to give here like maybe like a 3.3 out of 5 cheers. It's better than your run of the mill movie, but at the same time, it gets too artor. It gets too obnoxious at points that it takes away from what we love, witnessing all these beautiful stories he was trying to craft. And then we got to wait where he does like a few minutes of just like scenes of buildings, scenes of nature, where he's like, oh, look at this cool like art frame I'm going to do and all this kind of stuff. So here, maybe watch it, but just know you're getting into an art project. You're not going to be enjoying a movie. Let me tell y'all. So next up, this was a movie I didn't hear about until this weekend, and it's called Elevation. And all I heard was, because I was on Fandango looking to see what was hitting the theater this week, all I heard was Anthony Mackie, Monsters. I was in. That's all I need to know. You say Anthony Mackie and Monsters, cut the check, I'm in. And this is Elevation. So it's brought to us from George Nolfi, who brought us The Adjustment Bureau, which I'm a huge fan of. And basically in this movie, on just a random day, all these creatures came out of the ground and they just started wiping out humanity for no reason. And we get this by they do like a overlay, which I always enjoy in movies, of different radio, TV, all that. We just hear all the different static of things, and then we cut to 3 years later. So these creatures, they're very big, they're very fast, and guns, no weapons really do anything to them. And the one catch is that they can't go above 8,000 feet. So all of humanity that's left, because on that one day, about 95% of humanity was wiped out. But they realize that 8,000 feet and higher, they're safe. So they've all moved in little cabins and everything. People are trying to live. We got Anthony Mackie playing Will. We got Marina Baccarin as Nina and Maddie Hassan as Katie. And then one day, Will, whose son, Hunter, is needing some oxygen, needs to go into town. And Nina, she has been studying these things because all she wants to do is figure out a way to kill these things. And so they got to go on a mission, where they might have to go a little below 8,000 feet. It could be a suicide mission. And they go, and let me tell you some things about this movie. One, I really like the premise. The premise was very cool. Two, I really like the creatures. But let me tell you, let me bang my fist, pound the gavel, and raise a flag and a toast to George Nolfi, because we see the creatures in the daytime. We see them in all their glory. It's not this, we're filming at night. No, we see the creatures in the daytime. We see them in well-lit areas. We get close-up shots. That is all we want. As somebody who loves and breathes, all things creature features, we get all these shots in the daytime of this, like, it's almost like a scorpion, alienoid, cockroach thing. It's just big and it's fast, and they shoot grenades at it, they shoot guns at it, and nothing, it just ticks it off. And these things are fast too. And I just got to give him so much credit, because I love that, someone who's not afraid to show us something in the daytime very clearly. So, hat, I'm not even wearing a hat because my hat is off to George Nolfi. But, one thing I liked about this is always a great movie. It's it's something that I'm excited went to theaters because I think more people need to see it. We had about 10 in my auditorium, so hopefully, some good word spreads, people check it out. But one thing I like is it had a credit scene setting up a potential sequel. And what I'm really hoping is this becomes maybe like the next Skyline, because I don't know if people know this. Skyline, fantastic movie. It had two sequels, Skylines and Beyond Skyline. And that trilogy is incredible. What they ended up doing with it, even though they were forced. I mean, I don't know if they were forced, but it ended up being where they did the two sequels straight to DVD. But Beyond Skyline and Skylines were both really good and such a developed story. So I really hope people check out Elevation and like it. And I really hope we get sequels. Even if the leads from this can't be involved, I think that this was such a fun creature movie, much like Skyline, that it deserves some more. So I would give Elevation for, on the Eddie scale, this is a 4.4 to 4.6, somewhere around there. It's just a good old creature feature, and like I said, you get to see the creature, which is a huge plus. All right, finally, before we roll for Mr. Snail, let's go to streaming, but video on demand, because I rented Frankie Freako. Because when I heard our boy Steven Kostanski had a new movie out, I had to check it out. Steven Kostanski's brought us, and of course, I couldn't find my Void shirt, but he brought us The Void, which me and Trey both love. And he also brought us the hunky boys themselves. He brought us Psycho Gorman. Psycho Gorman, qu'est-ce que c'est? And I just was so excited that he did a new movie. And this one has Connor Sweeney playing Connor, appropriate, who's married to Christy Wordsworth, who plays Christina. And he's this real boring guy. Like, for him, intimacy is like holding his wife's hand, even though she's like dressed to the nines for him. His reports are boring. His living room is boring. His dress is boring. Everything about this man. I mean, vanilla ice cream's almost too boring, even for him. He's that boring. Doesn't even have caffeine. And then one day when his wife's out of town, he calls the number for Frankie Freako. And one thing I like about Steven Kostanski is almost all this cast have been in his other movies, whether it be Psycho Gorman, The Void. He did, I think, Father's Day, I believe, 2011, somewhere around there. And so for Frankie Freako, Dottie Dunko, and Boink Bardo, these are like little puppet dudes. They're pretty cool. We got Matthew Kennedy, Meredith Sweeney, and Adam Brooks, respectively. And Adam Brooks also plays his boss, Mr. Buchler. And these things are just, this is akin to something like Gremlins, Critters, Hobgoblins, Ghoulies. You got these weird little creatures causing havoc. And it reminded me a lot of Psycho Gorman. We got some funny lines like the Boink Bardo. He just always is going shabadoo. And and Connor, he thinks someone's evil and they turn out to be good. And he's like, "Oh, thanks, Crunch. Never doubt you for a second, buddy." Just great line. And the ending is a funny twist and a funny shot. Let me tell you, this guy, he always picks somebody to just forget about. And they're in like a terrible situation. Like old Alistair in Psycho Gorman, who was turned into a brain. And in this one, Mr. Buchler, he just in the basement, covered in slime, stuck to the floor. And this movie, it's just silly, goofy fun. I love puppets, and these puppets are pretty funny. Frankie Freako's great. Dottie Dunko's like a little gremlin cowgirl. And then Boink, he like is like a little Frankenstein like dude. Just, it's a fun movie, and that's what I appreciate. Stephen Costanzi for us. He brings us great movies. It's not on the level of The Void or Psycho Gorman, I gotta say that. But I still think this is a fun movie you need to check out. I would give it a 3.8 out of 5 cheers because it's a good time, and I think you should check it out. But I will say, watch Psycho Gorman first because that movie is incredible. If you love that movie, watch Frankie Freako. If you like that movie, I'd say still check out Frankie Freako. If you do not like Psycho Gorman, do not watch Frankie Freako because that will not be your bag. I'll go ahead and tell you that now. But it is time for Mr. Snail's Pick of the Week. So how we do this, I have a D20. I have 20 films. I roll it. Whatever Mr. Snail's dice chooses, then a week from now, so not next week, but the week after, because we do it every other week. Words are hard, y'all. I've told y'all this a million times. We will review that, and most of these are on Tubi. There's a couple that aren't. I try and make it so it's free for everyone to follow along, but still, there's some good stuff on here. So this week's picks, we have Coraline, The Unexpected Race, All Hallows Eve, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, Pieces, Electric Dreams, There's a Monster, Angus, Under the Boardwalk, Ernest and Celestine, A Trip to Gibraltar, Blue Ruin, The Incredible Bulk, I Saw the TV Glow, Caddo Lake, Daddy's Head, Fire and Ice, Intruder, Tourist Trap, Tuesday, and The Mutilator. So I have a D20. Let me clear my Coca-Cola. Let me put Mr. Snail aside for a moment. And we have a 3, which is All Hallows Eve. So y'all might have noticed I had a lot of horror movies because of stuff I didn't get to during Halloween. So All Hallows Eve I've never seen. But this is on Tubi for free. So make sure to check it out. Follow along. Not next week, but the following week. And this is the introduction to Art the Clown. This is a anthology that Damien Leone made where he introduces this character to us that David Howard Thornton would eventually turn into the icon he is now. And this one, though, is a different actor. So I'm interested to see that Art the Clown versus the Art the Clown we have now. Much like Terrifier 1 to Terrifier 2, 3, very different. This, All Hallows Eve to Terrifier, very different. So make sure to check it out. All Hallows Eve, available on Tubi. And then, we'll pick another. Like I said, Mr. Snail's Pick of the Week, it's every other week. That was what I was trying to figure out to say earlier. But guys, we appreciate you listening, and we gave you some great stuff in theaters now. Check out Anora. You can wait on here. Check out Elevation. Great time. Let's hope, fingers crossed, guys, that we get a Skylines where we get some sequels. And then Frankie Freako. Fun time. It's got to be your bag, though. So like I said, check out Psycho Gorman and then go from there. And make sure to watch All Hallows Eve if you haven't, so you can follow along with us. But there's so many ways you can follow along and tell us your thoughts and all in between. Let me tell you the best ways. Check us out on Instagram or TikTok, A Toast to Film, all one word. Or check me out on Twitter at film_toast. Or just look for us on YouTube, A Toast to Film podcast. And from Trey and myself, we just wish you a good night and good viewing.